Good afternoon and welcome to Flat Earth United. Joining me this afternoon is Anthony Riley. How are you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing good, my friend. How are you?
Very well indeed. For the purposes of this show, I think I'll call you Tony. Is that good by you? You said Tony is what your mates call you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Excellent. But yeah, for anybody watching on the re-upload, I'll put a little link to Anthony Riley's YouTube channel so you can check out his material. And to be fair to Tony, this isn't actually an interview that I've set up in advance with Tony specifically. It may turn into one and we may get some wonderful legal and flat earth information and all of the good stuff from Tony. But the reason for this hangout is because of a strange anomaly that I've experienced a couple of times, this time slightly more severe than on the other occasions that I've experienced it. So what I'm going to do is basically explain what I've experienced the first time around and then explain exactly what happened this time and the reason why I've actually fired up this hangout. So about 2 weeks ago, I was searching through my studio app, which is an app that lets you see all of the videos that you've made to date. And in that app, it actually showed about half a dozen or a dozen shows, actual live streams missing. And they were also missing from the specific playlists that I put those videos into. So in other words, I could not find them at all. And further to that, the videos were, some of them quite popular. So they would have appeared in at the very bottom of my page, there's a bit that says popular videos. And most of those were populated by these videos that had vanished. Now, it seemed, because they'd gone from the playlist, I just assumed it was an anomaly and gave it not a great deal of attention. Maybe 3-4 hours later, I checked again and everything was as normal. They'd all reappeared. So yesterday evening, I was chatting till quite a late hour in the morning for me, maybe 2, 3 in the morning, with Patricia Steer. And at the end of the conversation, I, as a matter of course, checked, see if there was any further comments that I needed to reply to in the studio app, and noticed that one specific video wasn't in the list. And that video I would consider to be quite an important video, or in fact a very important video. I won't downplay it at all. A video interview with Good Times for All, GUDTIMS, number 4, All, YouTube videographer who has done a series of flat earth experiments on a flat warehouse floor, backing further and further away from objects like a torch and a drawing of some buildings and some lines with a couple of paint cans with a pattern on. The reason being so that you can make out this band of distortion that is created, which is used by many as an excuse for curvature, or described as actually being you witnessing the curvature. And in essence, Zachary Zabala has debunked this thoroughly on a flat surface. So this has been done before by several other YouTube videographers who've done it over water on the large scale. And essentially, Zach has scaled this down to the point, there are others who have done this as well in slightly different varying ways, which Zach does give credit to on his videos. But anyway, so it's, to me, very upsetting because it's what I would consider to be an important interview. And as soon as I noticed that it'd gone, I sort of checked to see if it was on the playlists, because that had what happened before. And the reason I say it's important that it vanished from the playlists is as follows. If you have a list of playlisted videos that you have put together and someone else's video is in that list and they decide to delete that video would still appear in the playlist as a grey box with the words deleted video. And then when you click on that video, it would show as a deleted video. Now, in the case of the interview with Good Times for All, like a couple of weeks ago, it's like it's never existed. It's not in any of the playlists. In other words, it doesn't show as though I had actually deleted it in those playlists to be clicked and shown. It's just vanished completely. Now, fortunately, because I had actually made an advert, a trailer for that show, with even a chunk of the video that I was talking about and was discussing on that interview, I put a link to the show, so I could very easily and quickly just click on it and find that it said, in text format, this video has been removed by the user being me, and it absolutely hasn't been removed by myself. It's just vanished. So very dutifully, Patricia helped me out and got in touch with a few different sources that were at her fingertips and sent me the links, and I did the same at the same time. And then after a few hours, it was point of exhaustion, 4 in the morning or something ridiculous, and I went to bed and woke up and found it still wasn't there. So continued to look through various means of doing it. One of the ways of doing it, excuse me, is to go to the Wayback When machine, which is something I contacted David Weiss about this morning. And he said the same as me. Maybe it's the case that because it was only on Wednesday that this took place, that the Wayback When machine hasn't had time to actually archive it. Because when you go to the Wayback When machine to see if it's there a couple of days ago, it just says it doesn't exist, which is extremely weird. So further to that, one of the parts of information that Patricia passed on to me was a forum, a thread that people have been putting this problem into. So it seems like it's actually a wider problem that YouTube have. And one of the commenters has said, oh, it seems like the people who are having these videos just randomly get removed is people with Chrome. Now, while I do have Chrome on my computer, it's not exclusively what I use. And to me, it seems a bit strange that just having or just using a browser would cause you to lose a video. So I'm getting to the end. So that's pretty much what I'd found out, and continued to look for YouTube videos to see if there was anything further to that information online, and found a couple of videos. Again, I'll, if I remember, put a link to this one particular guy's video where he shows you how to literally contact YouTube and ask them to pop the video back up, which is exactly what I've done. So I've contacted them with my YouTube channel URL, name, contact information, and a brief description saying words to the effect, one of my videos is removed and this was not my intention. So that's what I've essentially asked YouTube, can you put it back up? So yeah, that's what I've asked YouTube to do, and hopefully it will just get put back up. We don't know. It may be the case that, as the videographer who explained this to me said, they will just say no if you get an awkward advisor. But as he pointed out, his video, which admittedly he said he had millions of views, whether or not that's true, I don't know. But he said that his video had been reinstated and it wasn't a big deal. And so that may be the case. I'll get to my final point, which is to say that I contacted Zachary Zavala immediately and cap in hand and said, I'm really sorry. I don't know why this has happened. It's not affected any of my other videos as far as I can see, but your interview with myself has been removed. The easy solution, if it doesn't go back up, is to have another interview and go through the same information again. Hopefully that will resolve some of the things. We don't know. I don't know if anybody's mirrored it. If anybody has, I doubt it. I've had a quick look. Normally I'd be pretty annoyed when people mirror my stuff without me giving them permission, but in this instance it'd be really wonderful if they had. But hopefully with any luck it'll just go back up and all of this will be irrelevant and just an interesting point to discuss. So with that said, I'll say a few hellos to a few people in the chat. Hi Arwin, how you doing? Flat Earth ANCAP, how you doing? Good to have you here. Helioskeptic, thank you very much for joining us. Got anybody else? If I scroll back up the chat, can't quite do it. I'll do it slightly later because we've left Tony dangling for quite some time. So what do you make of all that, Tony? It's always easier to have this as a dialogue. Now you've heard my little diatribe. What are your thoughts?
I think generally the figures that you see on YouTube are not reliable anyway. I think that the counts as they go up change. And they don't show true counts, and I think you can't use them, the analytics, you can't use them as an absolute. You have to use them as a guide and take them as a guide. I think that things do go wrong, and it's technology of this modern era, isn't it? Nothing works properly.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true for Google Plus. As much as I love YouTube and think it's wonderful and want to be a professional YouTube videographer, if you can class yourself as such a thing, it's one where it's very, very clunky. Skype, if Skype broadcasts live, it would be wonderful. It sorts out all feedback problems. It seems to be very good if everybody's up to date with their software. Whereas if you're not up to date, it can cause horrendous problems. Whereas Google Plus is the other way around. Almost anybody can join my show with a bit of fuss. I mean, there was a little bit of fuss, nothing more out of the ordinary with you joining than any other guest, but a little bit of fuss to get you on. But once you're on, I don't know what device you're using, but most people can get on with most devices without too much trouble. So yeah, it's one where I find that they're sort of different faults and different foibles. But for me, losing a video, that's disaster. That like almost makes me want to throw in the towel. You know, it's like that's the whole point of doing this. And
especially when it was his video, because his videos are really, his work he's been doing recently is really, really good.
Yeah, I was in the debate that Spurs had with Red Rhetoric, and he got to that exact point and didn't have a video to hand that would explain what they were debating, which was this band of whatever you call it, mirroring, convergence, atmosphere, all of the different things that are thrown into one mix of things that creates this effect where you can have the sun setting on a flat earth or buildings disappearing behind the curve. But yeah, I mean, that was what I said from the chat to Spurs. You know, go to my channel, you'll find a link for Good Times for All's video that explains this perfectly. And that's exactly what he did. He went to Good Times for All's video with a cardboard box and the outline of the buildings. So, you know, I want to publicise Good Times for All and the work that he's doing in as a broader way as possible. That said, if it was anybody's video, if this got deleted, I'd be absolutely devastated. You know, it's not even been made yet, but I'd still be devastated because this is my work. As far as I'm concerned, this represents quite a lot of work. That video as well, you know, it wasn't like I just stuck the link out in the chat and was lucky enough for Good Times for All to be there and just join the show and have a chat with me. It was, you know, pre-arranged. We'd worked out when to do the show, had a chit chat, had some dialogue beforehand, quite a lot of interaction just to find him in the first place for that video to have taken place. So, you know, should it not get put back up, to me, it will be gutting. You know, it will upset me. It already has, hence me making this video. But, you know, that kind of thing is just, that's the purpose of doing this, to have the videos at the end. And the other annoying thing is, ordinarily, with every other video I've made, with every live show, I've got a secondary channel. Feel free to go and subscribe to it, which is just called Nathan Oakley. And that particular channel is, can you just pop yourself on mute, please? But yeah, that particular channel is just Nathan Oakley, mainly containing my YouTube interviews only. There's other stuff on there from way back when, but that particular channel is only there as an archive. And ordinarily, I'd just immediately mirror them. But these shows go up till 1, 2 in the morning when they finish. And you know, I've got a kid now. It's unfortunate, but unfortunately, I have to go to sleep at some stage and get at least 2 or 3 hours sleep to be up at 6 o'clock to, you know, be even reasonably compos mentis so I can care for my kid. So with those last 2 videos, Subtle Infinity and Good Times for All, I intended to do them today, you know, my day off when I've got plenty to do. This wasn't my intention to do this show, but to actually archive them onto my second channel. How you doing, Meryl? I can't pronounce that name. Birdguard, I think it is. Can't see it this distance. How you doing? Yeah, my intention would be to do it today and actually just mirror those. I'll still mirror Subtle Infinity on Nathan Oakley channel, so it's archived at least. But I haven't done them. So that video going missing is the most frustrating thing in the world when that's your normal pattern. Just through lack of time, you've left it 2 or 3 days and you end up potentially losing it. But yeah, I don't know. My apologies for ranting on so much about this, Tony.
Well, I saw bits of the Reds Rhetoric hangout with Spurs Chemo. Hello Spurs, I wore this top just for you. I know he's a Spurs fan, so I thought let's do something political. Not knowing that he's in here, I thought I'll wear my Liverpool top just because he's here. But yeah, I saw him, and I was working at the time. I had it on my phone. I was listening to bits of it on my phone, and I was listening to the part where he was showing that fjord in Norway, and I was screaming down the phone, "Good times for all!" That's what he needed to do that video. I've referenced it so many times. I've done it in a few videos recently. I've been speaking to him on it. I think his videos are really, really good. So I've been citing them a lot. It does explain why buildings appear to disappear from the bottom side up. And it's interesting, there's no science to explain this apparent appearance of the horizon rising up the buildings. There's no science whatsoever. They don't talk about it. So he spotted somewhere that science hasn't spotted.
Well, this is the reason why I immediately asked you to come onto this show. I noticed you were in the chat, and you and I have been chatting recently about this particular subject because of Metabunk, and maybe you can detail for the audience your progression from it's not enough to just say, yes, good times for all is wonderful. I want you to sort of preface that with your current situation, if that makes sense.
Sure. Well, I've been doing a lot of research with Blackpool Tower recently. I've got some good hardware, some good camera photography hardware, and that allows me to do certain things. And my limitation is nighttime viewing. I can't do nighttime viewing. However, Blackpool Tower is quite a topic of interest for me at the moment because it's tall enough for it to disappear behind the curve of the earth when you get relatively close, or relatively far away from it. But it's not that tall that it never disappears behind the curve of the earth. It's 518 feet tall. And essentially, I've been seeing what he's been showing in his videos myself. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes when you see these things, you do question what you're actually looking at. Is it actually the curve of the earth? Now, we realized that if we went back and did the same observations, but at nighttime, we realized that the atmospheric effects, whatever they may be, are no longer there. The atmospheric effects are significantly different, i.e. gone, if not minimal. And what we realized is that the apparent curve of the earth by day is not there by night, meaning that either the earth's a curved ball by the day, or we're seeing atmospheric effects during the day that we don't see at nighttime, and therefore kind of prove that the earth cannot have curve to it. And if it does have curve to it, it's not the size that they tell us it is. So when I saw Good Times for All video, and honestly, it was like that moment where Neil disgraced Tyson gets his microphone and drops it on the floor. It was like that kind of moment to me, because I realized it was shit. It was a eureka moment, because it was matching exactly what my observations and my experience was. Now, you get all the ball earthers giving me a lot of shit on my own videos, and that's fine, because they're not going out and doing the stuff. And when they actually go out and do the stuff, it's going to cause conflicts with their reality, because their reality is based on pseudoscience. And when I saw Good Times for All video and I realized that he was representing what I was actually seeing when I was doing my observations, I just thought, oh my God, this guy's right. And yeah, I reference him all the time. I reference him. I wish I'd have had Spurs Chemo on instant dial-up when he was on Reds, because the two videos that he does is fantastic. They would have beaten Reds hands down. Well, by the way, on that Reds hangout, I noticed that Reds was on about this sun, never dilates in the night sky, and I was like, just go up in a dry environment at altitude, and you can see exactly that phenomena. Again, I was shouting at Spurs Chemo, "Come on, dude, get that video up!" But yeah, I can't sing his praises enough.
I mean, I'm going to get you to detail a little bit more about Blackpool Tower in a moment. I'm just going to do a few shout outs to a few people. It's always nice when you get an actual audience for an impromptu chat. So let's say hello to a few people who've joined us. Jack Parsons, thank you very much for being here. Mark Johns, how you doing? Ginger Sugarbush 905, thank you very much for being here. Isa Machalski 77, hello, thanks for being in the live chat, along with Noonsflower and Holly Beth. Very pleased to see you. Mark Johns again, Helio Skeptic, we've said hello to. LB, is that Illustrations? Hey, how you doing? Very pleased to have you all here. Thank you very much for joining us live for this impromptu chat. I'll maybe explain for anybody who's joined us just briefly why I fired this hangout up, and that's simply because one of the videos with an important videographer, Good Times for All, has apparently vanished from my channel. This is a glitch that has happened a couple of weeks ago, but the videos did seem to just reappear. The defining thing that makes me think that might be the case here, in which case it's just an interesting talking point, as opposed to an absolute outrage and a disaster, was that the videos aren't in the playlists anymore. Ordinarily, if I'd have actually deleted this video, this interview with Good Times for All, it would still appear in the playlists for me and anybody else who'd added it to a playlist as a grey box saying deleted video, whereas it seems to have vanished out of all existence, and hence me being a little bit frustrated and firing this hangout after simply writing a message to YouTube. I say again, I will put a link in the box should anybody else experience this exact same problem. You can watch that video of how to actually contact YouTube via email and say, please can you put my video back up? I don't really want it disappearing. So yeah, so that's why I fired this hangout up. So back to Blackpool Tower. You mentioned last time we spoke that some of the photography is looking for lights on the tower, but the lights are only facing a certain direction. Can you just give us an explanation to how that would affect anybody who's trying to photograph the tower?
Well, the lights that the mandatory lighting that is on the tower, there is one big bright light at the top, and the tower is illuminated with different color LEDs, and at the moment it's lit up in blue. But when we meant to be talking about the metabunk? Isn't that what we were talking about initially? The metabunk curve calculation.
Say again, sorry.
Weren't we meant to be discussing the metabunk site web particularly?
Yeah, sure, but that will obviously, the metabunk curve calculation comes into how this all started in terms of the photograph of Blackpool Tower. So what I want to do is keep it in a nice order where if somebody come to this video afterwards, they would be able to, because we're in the UK, there may be people who go, oh, well, I want to do this for myself. And if you just give all the information about Blackpool Tower and then move on to metabunk.
All right, so the tower first came to me maybe 18 months ago. Essentially, it's because of its height. It's 518 feet tall. Essentially, you need to be 30 miles away for it to pretty much disappear. Technically, it's not a full disappearance at 30 miles, but it's as good as damn it. It's kind of like 3/4 of it is gone. Now, I worked out that I could see that 30-mile distance from different places, and I set out to go and try and prove it. And when I got there, I failed to prove that we could see what they were telling us, because when I got there, it was like what they said that we should be seeing was not what we could see. And we noticed that by day, the curvature calculations suggested that we were seeing the curve of the Earth. Now, there was an argument, or it was a moot point to how much we were seeing, because it was quite badly distorted by the moisture and the temperature, the humidity, atmospheric variations that were present at that exact moment. But we realized that essentially we could see stuff that we should not be seeing, and that was even by day. But then, because my partner is a keen photographer and she's got some good hardware, she said, "Why don't you do it at night?" And I was like, "Why would I do it at night?" And she said, "Because you can get long exposure photography that would show the lighting. It wouldn't show the actual. You're obviously not going to see the tower, but the tower itself is illuminated in full." She said, "You'll see it." And I was like, "Seriously?" So anyway, we tried it on a couple of test runs, a little bit on locations a lot nearer to me, and the results were incredible. And I was so convinced that we would see it at night time that we needed to go down to 30 miles away. I was viewing it from 22 miles away near to where I live, but I needed to get to 30 because according to the curvature calculations, at 30, it was far enough away for you to determine absolutely that there was either definite curve or no curve, because it was pretty much gone. So off we set, did the observation. And I'll be honest, I kind of messed it up at the first time around, and I got a lot of criticism as to what I was actually seeing. So I said, okay, I'll go back and I'll redo the experiment, and let's see what I'll come back with results-wise. In the meantime, I met a guy called Ranty Rant Rant, and he lives very close to me, and I convinced him that I wasn't a crazy bastard and that we should go and do this experiment at 30 miles. He was doing the same kind of experiment, and he was literally doing it from other locations near to where he lives. But he couldn't get 30 miles away, and the place that he could get to was close enough for us to both travel to. And essentially, we went back at night time at 30 miles, observed Blackpool Tower. You can see the results on my own channel. It's phenomenal. There's no easy way to describe it, but it proves absolutely that there is no curve. We see the whole of the tower. We not just see the tower, we see the ballroom underneath, we see the pier lights that are on the pier that's obviously on the water level. Yet 3/4 of that tower is supposed to be obscured by the curvature of the Earth. It isn't happening. It's not even getting close to. What we do observe is that even at nighttime there is a little bit of atmospheric effect, but the effect is the exact effect that Good Times for All showed in that. You know, the video with the box and the two pieces of paper, the piece of paper on it with the buildings. As he's moving further back and the horizon appears to rise up to your eye line, that was happening even at nighttime, and it's demonstrably there. But people that believe in the Bohr model obviously won't accept it, but it's evidenced. So you can't just dismiss the evidence. The evidence is good. So we realized that at nighttime, viewing Blackpool Tower at 30 miles away, this was basically a ball killer, an absolute ball killer. And obviously I've got now a bit of attention from Sean Hufford, who thinks that in some way that I'm somehow dishonest, and that hopefully is going to be getting dealt with today in the next 10 or 12 hours. And we're going to give Sean Hufford the bum smack that he actually deserves. But essentially, Blackpool Tower is a fantastic observation from anybody that's got a P900 that knows how to do long exposure at nighttime, because there are many points of sight that you can see it all around the northwest of the UK, including going up towards Scotland and the Lake District. We can see and the Isle of Man. We can see it from a long way away, especially at nighttime. So the Blackpool Tower observation is definitely a good one.
Well, this was what I was kind of trying to lead you on to in terms of the Isle of Man, because of the lighting situation. If you were to be trying to observe the Isle of Man with Blackpool, I'll start again. There's a photograph that's been taken with multiple focal points that's been composited together and then published.
Yeah.
That has the Isle of Man in the background.
Yeah.
But am I correct in saying that the tower is not lit from that direction?
No, it's not. It was take that particular photo. I'll see if I can dig it out, and I'll see if I can get it on screen for you. I don't know where I've saved it. I'll do this while I'm chatting. That particular.
I'll do some filler while you have a look, so you can concentrate on it. So I think we've got a couple of other guests.
Go on, then I'll find it while you're chatting.
Superb. Just pop yourself on mute. So I think Jonathan Doherty, how you doing? Good to have you here. Mark Taylor, debating away happily. All cordial and polite. Thank you very much indeed. Carl Stenbeck, thank you very much for coming and saying hi on this impromptu chat. Lee Redpath, good to see you. It is indeed flat. And this is kind of what we're talking about. I mean, these observations made by Good Times for All are very simple to replicate and do yourself. He was thorough. He showed humidity readings, gave all of the information you needed to know about distances, times, even to the point where he was explaining what the fan movements were doing in the warehouse that he's doing these experiments in, and he's comparing them to the big scale, and it matches exactly what Tony's saying. You can replicate this and compare on the small scale how to get things to disappear from bottom up across a perfectly flat plane, and that's exactly what he did with things like water. When you do these observations over water, there are more atmospheric effects that are going to take place because of the water itself and the atmosphere that it creates, plus the movement of the water. Yes, we are banging the same drum that water at rest is completely flat and still, and with a mill pond, yes, you can observe that on a large scale out in nature. With the sea or with a lake that's of any size, there will be a certain amount of water movement. But what Good Times for All has done is replicate this across a warehouse floor, a perfectly level warehouse floor, and backed away, I think he said it was 20 feet at a time, down this warehouse, taking photographs 1.5 inches off the ground, which is to say that he's got his camera sat on the ground and the center of the lens is 1.5 inches off that, and he's backed away. And in the case of his experiment replicating the sun with a simple flashlight or torch for us in the UK, he's backed away and very quickly made the sun set on this flat plane, and got a lot of the effects that I myself have observed with, converging, mirroring, the way the sun distorts as it's setting. And we're privileged at the moment. There's a lot of people out there with very, very sophisticated cameras, the P900, sponsor of the Flat Earth being one of them, and people are getting to see details that you just simply can't see with the naked eye, with these super zoom cameras. So some of the observations of what the sun actually does at distance in its last few seconds, we're getting to really scrutinize some of these things. Like I say, you just wouldn't go out and notice this happening to the sun with this band of mirroring, for example, with your naked eye. You can only really observe these things with either telescopic equipment or super zoom cameras, things of that nature, and you can really see what's happening and then compare it on the small scale, replicate it on the small scale on the cheap. It's not costing anybody a fortune to copy what Good Times for All has done, and that's precisely why I wanted to promote his work. And then people like Tony will come along and have the reaction that they have had, not as a direct consequence of my interview, I'm hastened to add, but by promoting him to the wider audience that potentially I have, with a few more thousand subscribers than he has, it means that other people in the same position as Spurs the other day will have a quick reference to say, no, this isn't curvature. Don't talk nonsense. Just because we're losing a little bit of buildings at distance, here is a very easy to replicate, not just easy to explain, unlike most of the heliocentric nonsense. It's easy to replicate. You can actually go out and copy what he has done. If you've got a camera for nothing, for no money, the cost of a sheet of paper. But yeah, how are you getting on, Tony? Did you manage to find that picture?
I've got the picture. I've got the website as well. I'm trying to share the screen, but for some reason it's not allowing me to do it. I don't know why. It's when you click screen share on the left, it's not having it. Any ideas? If not, it doesn't matter. I can post it in the chat, and what I'll do is I'll post 3 times in chat now the link, or a link to the photo that's on the website that I found it on. I've been in touch with this guy since. Let me just do the link first. So there's the first link. Oh no, it's not allowing me to print it. I can't do it. How am I going to get this on screen?
Stick it in the side chat, and while if you can talk for a little bit, I'll see if I can bring it up.
Okay, then let's try that.
Internal chat. I'll see if I can bring it up as a screen share.
Try that. Can you see that in the side chat?
Yeah, I've got it. Now I need you to chat a little bit.
All right. If you can get it on screen, essentially, I saw this on. What happened was I did my Blackpool Tower observation, and somebody responded to it, and he said, "Here, check this photo out that I've took myself." And I said, "You've actually took this yourself?" And I looked at it, and I was like, "Oh my god!" It was, for me, it was like a eureka moment. And I said, "Are you interested in that? Have you come across the flat Earth movement yet?" And he says, "I've come across it." He said, "But I'm a ball earther myself." He says, "I'm not really interested in the debate." I said, "How can you be a ball earther when you look at this particular? You took this photo yourself, and you can see stuff there that is clearly wrong." And he was like, "Well, I knew it was a flat Earth treasure trove the minute I saw it." I said, "So how can you not be a ball? How can you still be a ball earther?" Anyway, we got chatting into the actual way this photograph was actually made. If you use Control and Plus, you might be able to zoom in a little bit, Nathan, and make it a bit bigger. You should zoom in on your browser, hopefully. But if you notice on this actual picture, yeah, that's great. You'll notice on this picture that the actual turbines, if anybody goes to the actual link on this, it's the Lancashire Evening Post. And then if you search for why this picture is not fake, you'll find it. But you can actually see that the turbines look like they've had multiple photos, because there's like 10 arms on the 3-arm turbine itself, and it doesn't make any sense. And I asked him, like, what's going on? And you can also see on the left-hand side there appears to be like some kind of weird distortion where the mountains, that way mouse is right there now. Something weird's going on there. And I asked him, what's going on there? And I said, has this been through Photoshop? He said, it's not been through Photoshop. It's technically, the technical phrase for it is a composite. And I was like, what do you mean a composite? And he said, what I've done to get that photograph is he's got a D500 camera, like what I've got. And in the focal window, you can specify specific places where you want the camera to focus. And he took 2 photos. How many focal points are there in that lens? Is there about 15, 20?
Which one?
The on the viewfinder.
Which lens?
D500 with all the dots all the way around it.
Oh, there's 52.
There's 52 focal points in one photograph. So what he's done is he's focused every single focal point on the photo, and he's gone across it in layers. So, and he's took 50 photos, but each photo had one precise focal point. And then he's used software to lay them all together so that every single point is completely focused, and you end up with a composite image, but all of it's in focus. Now, obviously, when Ball Earthers found out about this composite, they said, "Oh, well, you'll accept it from NASA, but you won't accept it when a flatty does it." And he's actually a Ball Earther. He's just a keen photographer. But that's allowed him to get a focused image that's everything in focus, which is why it looks fake. So I said to him, I said, "Could you repeat it?" And he says, "Yeah." I said, "What circumstances would you need weather-wise to be able to do that?" And he said, "Well, it has to be a good day, obviously." I said, "Let's do it." I said, "Next time we get the opportunity to do it, let's do that." So we're lining that up to do. We should be able to do that in the next week or 2. But if we can repeat it so that it's not a fluke, then essentially there's no argument over anything. It is something that we can see. It's 90 miles away. We seem to have lost the image, Nathan, if you can stick it back up. But it's 90 miles away. We shouldn't see those mountains in the background on the Isle of Man, other than a very, very thin slither on the horizon. Because they're 90 miles away, even though we're on a hill, according to the curvature calculations. Now, the most interesting thing about the curve calculator, obviously, there's 2 formats. There's the one that everybody uses, that's the generic one, but there's also this Metabunk one, which is what Ball Earthers have now got wind of, and this makes an adjustment for something called standard refraction. And the Metabunk site is now being cited by all the Ball Earthers because it has this adjustment on it, and the effect of the adjustment is that it reduces the amount of perceived curve. And it's significant. The further away you go, it becomes more and more significant, although they argue it's minimal, but it's not. It's significant. And essentially, this Metabunk website is the focal point for me at the moment, because on this particular image, it said that the horizon was only 50 miles away. Now, the mountains in the far background are 90 miles away, and it's trying to tell us that 50 mile away is the horizon point, which on this particular photo is somewhere between Blackpool Tower and the shore in front of it. it's not much further than the tower itself. Yet we're clearly seeing that the horizon point is, well, it's 90 miles away, isn't it? Because that's where the mountains are. So that's where the curvature starts coming into it, the curvature calculations. And that's where I've ended up with one of my most recent videos. I found out that the guy that done the MetaBunk website, there's a guy called Mick. I found out through, what's his name? Flat Earth Asshole's most recent video challenging that Mick. And essentially, I agree with Flat Earth Asshole's criticism that the MetaBunk website is simply calculating for the errors in the mathematics with regard to the apparent curve. There is no curve. If there was curve, we should be able to see it. We're not seeing it according to their own model, and that's why I've taken issue with it. So Flat Earth Asshole's done a video very recently on the MetaBunk site. I agree with it and I endorse it. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it because it's a very good video criticising that MetaBunk website.
And yeah, if you want to see Tony's video in that regards, I think its title is "Which Came First, the P900 or Standard?" Or is it "Which Came First, Standard Refraction or the P900?" Is that right?
It's one or the other. Which came first, P900? Yeah, which way around? I don't know which one it is. Let's have a quick look. But essentially, I mean, these are things that we can all do. And that P900, it's called the Flat Earth, the Ball Earth Killer for a good reason. You got such a good zoom on it with automatic focus. You don't have to play around with focus. It makes it so easy for anybody to use. Essentially, 300 quid and you get yourself a camera that can prove that the Earth is not a ball.
Yeah. Flat Earth, sponsored by the P900, as I would say.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm not a gimmicky kind of guy. I am into tech, but I'm not a gimmicky kind of guy. But I can't endorse it enough. It's autofocus. The zoom that it gets you to is simply astonishing. And the long exposure photography you can get at nighttime is astonishing. It's as good as anything that's like high quality in terms of our cameras that we use. And if you're thinking about getting one, go and get one. But around a structure that's around about 500 feet tall, because you can make that disappear quite easily. You can prove it as well. It's a sweet spot for a building height.
Yeah, checks in the post.
Indeed. The video on my channel is called "What Came First, the P900 or Standard Refraction?" because standard refraction's only become an issue since the P900's come out and everyone's showing that there is no curve. So they're having to find excuses to show why there is no apparent curve. I've got to the point where I've challenged the Mick West of MetaBunk, and he's responded. He has actually responded. I've had a dialogue directly with him, and basically he's fudged it away with science. But I'm going to challenge him by video. I'm going to do an open letter to him. I'm going to challenge him to get a light source, drop it behind the curve of the Earth, which we know he's not going to be able to do, and then show that using standard refraction that light source can appear back behind the curve of the Earth. And we know that it's not going to happen because he can't put anything behind the curve of the Earth in the first place. But I'm going to focus on the actual standard refraction bit as the focal point because it doesn't exist. He's lying about the way he advertises it on the MetaBunk website. He does it as a calculation based on the distance, and apparently it affects the ability to see behind the curve. But what we actually see, I'll cite Jeranism's Skunk Bay footage. If you haven't seen Jeranism's boats going over the curve of the Earth debunked, or whichever one it is, the Skunk Bay footage that he puts in his video, it's absolutely fantastic because it shows what is refraction. It shows the shimmering and the stretching. We see our horizon as a two-dimensional plane. We see the convergence from the sky and the convergence from the ground, and it all meets at one horizon line, and that's what we actually see. But they're telling us that according to the MetaBunk website, that we see the curve of the Earth and we see things that are behind it coming into the foreground so we can see it. And that's not what we're seeing at all in real life. This is where it's a paradox that most people are now being able to spot, because the reality is there is no curve and things in the background stay in the background. If you can't see them, you can't see them. They never become available. You can't see them. The only thing that does happen is the opacity of the moisture in the atmosphere creates an ability to block what you're seeing. So it makes it fade out. So you can effectively can't see it, even though it is there. But it's not because it's fallen behind any curve of the Earth. It's because the atmosphere is playing effects with our eyes, and we literally just cannot see it because of smog, moisture, temperature, humidity, pollen plays a factor. Insects and stuff, like all these things get in between you and put a barrier in between what you're looking at. And even though you think that it should be there and you should be able to see it, there are things that stop us, and it's just the opacity of the atmosphere, be it pollution or whatever cause. Yet they're trying to tell us it's light bending around the curve of the Earth that's coming into view because of the standard refraction, and it's not. Skunk Bay evidence shows, the Skunk Bay footage shows clearly what refraction really is, and the Metabunk site's clearly not showing it. It's misrepresenting our reality, but no one really notices it because why would you check it?
Yeah, I remember seeing that video that you're describing that Jerem put out that was debunking Reg Rhetoric's video where he went to the beach and essentially watched boats go over the horizon. And that particular video had seagulls, I think they were, that were flying in and out of that refractive band. And in real time, you could watch the mirror disappear and then come back out above the line of the horizon. What was appearing to be the horizon, because there's the line below, because there's a line of sky that's mirrored, and that's the band that those birds were flying in and out of. And it was, I remember my breath being taken away when I saw that.
And that's the bit that Red's failed to address, isn't it? He obviously ignored that bit because it was convenient for him to ignore it. But when it was pointed out to him, you know, how do you respond to that? There's nothing you can say to explain that away on the Ball Earth model. It's ridiculous. But you're clearly seeing that there is atmospheric effect going on that, I'll be honest, I don't understand it. I couldn't. People are challenging me to say, well, go on then. You tell me what's... And I'm not there and suggesting what's going on. All I can say is it isn't matching what we're seeing. That Metabunk site, that standard refraction adjustment does not match what we see evidentially. There's plenty of evidence that proves it. And I challenge, and literally, everybody should go out, and anyone with a P900 should go out and check it, which they're all doing anyway, because that's why they buy the P900. If you're thinking about getting a P900, go and get one. Go and test it. Because all of the evidence none of the evidence is supported. The only thing that I'll give the Ball Earthers credit, there is one element of the atmospheric effect that does support their curvature of the Earth argument, and it's the way that the horizon rises up to the eye line does appear to be the curve of the Earth. But when you reference it with the Good Times for All video, and you show, well, actually, even on a flat surface, we get the same effect. And therefore, which way does it go? Is it the curve of the Earth, or is it actually an atmospheric effect to do with you reducing your angle of observation pretty much to horizontal? The horizon converges with our perspective. It's to do with our perspective. And the minute you mention perspective to a Ball Earther, they think that they use it as a generic catch-all phrase, but it is actually that. It is what we're seeing. Everything as you get to the horizontal point with the horizon of your eye, all of that land, that 30 miles of land, is converging into a tiny little bit of line that is your horizon, but it's still 30 miles worth of stuff. But it's converting into a line like that, and when it does that, it does appear to rise up. Good Times for You has showed it. However, you mentioned it if you suggested it's perspective, oh no, you can't come out with perspective again. But that is the reality. We are seeing that effect, and it is a Ball Earth killer. It really is that P900, and everybody should go out and buy one and just go and play with it, because the stuff we should be seeing, the stuff that we see that we simply should not be seeing, and I can't support it enough.
I've had a word from our sponsor that I should mention Issa Mahal, because he's got a P900, and he had a very interesting conversation with another guest in our chat room at the moment, which is Jeremy, or Gems Panda. And Gems Panda was led down a very nice path by Issa Mahal. Did you catch that by any chance?
Just in chat now?
No, this is a few days ago. So he had Gem Panda on a panel, and he was essentially explaining the paradox of boats going over the curve versus raising in altitude to not see curvature if you are using anything like a domestic airliner. In other words, you can't see the curve from altitude, but you can see boats go over the horizon. And the way that Issa did it in his very calm and collected way with Jeremy was to take him on that journey. And although I didn't hear the words said by Jeremy specifically, you know, he didn't specifically concede, it was clear to all what had just taken place. So did you actually see that?
I think I was silent on the panel at the time. I was doing something, but I was listening to it, and Issa was basically saying you can't have no curvature at 70 or 100,000 feet if you're going to claim that boats disappear after 5 miles over the horizon. And I agree entirely. It's a paradox. It's a complete and utter paradox. And Issa, hi, he's in now, isn't he? He's in the chat now, isn't he, Issa? Hi, Issa.
Issa and Jeremy are both in there.
Oh, are they? All right. To be honest with you, it was a good debate, because I agree with Issa. You can't have the boats disappearing over the curve after just a few miles, when 110, 120,000 feet horizon still appears to be flat. His point is valid.
I'm going to do a few more shout outs to people who've joined us. quite good audience, surprising. Jerry Cthulhu, how are you doing? Thank you for spelling your name phonetically last time for me. I now get the reference, Cthulhu. Healthy Skeptic, pleased to see you. BFSWDAB, pleased to see you here. Childs, thanks for being here. Helio Skeptic, I don't know if I said hello to you earlier. JJ, how you doing? Pleased to see you. FE Love App, hello. Good to see you as well. Who else? We've got Andre Z, Swampler, thanks for being here. I think that's it. I'll just scroll up a little bit more. Lee Redpath, I think I said hello to you already. Terry Elrod, shout out to you, my friend. Pray for Factless. This is, my screen's got quite some distance. I hope I'm saying your names right. Apologies in advance if I'm not. I think that's pretty much it. Adam Eves, hello. If I've missed you out, I'll do a few more shout outs before we round out shortly. But yeah, thank you very much all for being here. Much obliged. Hopefully you'll scroll back to the beginning of this video. I won't say a third time the reason for the title, but if you do watch the beginning of this video, I'll give a bit of a 5-minute explanation for the missing Good Times for All interview video, which hopefully, you never know, by the time we stop this stream, we may have that video back reinstated. If not, I'm going to get in touch again with Good Times for All, who's an early riser. I was hoping he'd be up already. I did send him the link to this show, so you never know, luck, he might just join at the end and we might get a bit of a twofer along with Tony. Yeah, I know this is an impromptu chat, Tony. We may do a proper interview at some stage, but is there anything you wanted to add before I start to round things up?
That Metabunk website shows standard refraction as a variable on the maths, and it simply doesn't exist. Anybody that refers to that, honestly, in my opinion, is totally and utterly, they're brainwashed. Anybody that believes that standard refraction does what that website explains it does, which is a calculation based on the distance, it's brainwash. It doesn't do it in real life. It's inconsistent, and maths that fails to match the reality is simply, utterly, and 100% void. It's completely wrong. In any event, you can use the normal curvature calculations and disprove that anyway. So they both get disproved. And nighttime photography, time-lapse photography, P900, building over 500 feet, but not over 600 feet. Sweet spot, baby. It's a sweet spot.
Yeah, very well put. I mean, that's what it all boils down to. And this standard refraction in Metabunk seems like what I would describe as a layer of heliocentric bullshit. And it's like it's out there as a test bed. Will the people buy this? Yes. Will it be absorbed as another accepted explanation for a very obvious flaw in the heliocentric model? But if it's accepted on paper, you know, like you've just said, I'm glad you said it in the way you did. You know, if you've got a camera, go out, check it, double check it, triple check it. We can all do it. It's easy. And now that we've got some coherent explanations that can be replicated on both large and small scale, you can be confident in what you say. You know, I'm sure people like Eastern Hall will go out and do this. They'll be finding, you know, long flat surfaces to replicate what Good Times for All has done. And I look forward to seeing those videos.
What I would say is that I noticed that in the UK, we appear to get slightly different atmospheric conditions to people in America. Red's Rhetoric did the Big Ben's power station at nighttime and seemed to get that band, that distorted band on the horizon. And we rarely even see that, even in the middle of summer. Sometimes it's there. I have seen it once or twice, but it's certainly not commonplace in the UK. But Red's got it at nighttime, which I found astonishing. It means he obviously lives in a hot, humid climate, and I know he's in the Everglades somewhere near Florida. But essentially, bear in mind that we do get atmospheric variations across the globe, and you need to bear that in mind. So just because we may not get stuff in the UK doesn't mean that everybody else doesn't get the stuff that we don't get. They seem to get stuff that's slightly different to us, and obviously it alters that which they believe. And there's a disparity between what we perceive to be the real world and what other people do, because there are different variations in the climate and the atmosphere. So just bear in mind that not everybody sees things the way that the English see it.
For sure. I'm gonna thank you for joining me in a moment. I'll do a few last shout outs, Tony, and then I'll plug your YouTube channel one last time. So yeah, Fish Called Rick, thank you very much for joining us. Yvette, hello, how you doing? Good to see you. We got the Impossible Gem Panda. That's Jeremy. Hey, Good Times for All has joined us. Well, good times for all. Hopefully you've seen a few of my messages. I have actually sent you a link to the show. If you did want to join, there's a few more minutes maybe left if you did want to join. If not, and your video does not reappear, we'll hopefully be doing another interview sometime in the near future.
I just want to give a good shout out to Good Times for All. I don't know if you heard me giving you accreditation before, but I've used your video so many times. It's a fantastic video. It shows exactly what is the curvature calculation representation by day, and I believe that what you've done, you've shown what is really the curvature calculation appears to be a representation of the way our eyes work during the day. It's clearly inconsistent at nighttime, but you've seemed to have evidenced it by day in the consistent way with what the maths tell us. You've actually shown the reason for why we see what we see. And I can't thank you enough, my friend. It's a fantastic video, a fantastic set of videos.
Yeah, for sure. There'll be a whole bunch of links for people to subscribe. So if nothing else, there's some positive coming out of this because there's lots of extra plugging going for Zachary Sabala. So yeah, definitely check out his videos. LL Overload X, good to see you here, my friend. Qualu Charlie, hello. Good to see you. Have I missed anybody? Zulu One, hello. To say Joey Slive, I think that's right. SYLVE.
Is Good Times for All an American?
Yeah.
It's just that he's put, I can't join right this sec. I'm at my Mars and then off to work. That's a very English phrase, isn't it? I'm at my Mars.
At my Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Good Times for All, my friend. Look me up, my friend. We need to have a chat on Skype sometime because I just want to pat you on the back a little bit more because I think you deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, I'm going to say a massive thank you to YouTuber Anthony Riley for joining me on this impromptu chat and bearing with me as I moan about videos that may or may not reappear. Thank you very much, Tony, for being here.
No problem, and I'm looking forward to Liverpool playing their final home game of the season today. It might be an away game, I'm not sure, but they're playing at about, I think they're playing now, actually, so I'm going to go and watch the rest of the football and keep playing with the P900 and keep using that curvature calculation, guys, because it's very good. Have a really great day, and I'll see you soon.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much for being here. And once again, to all of you who have joined us in the live chat, thank you very much for being here. I've been Nathan Oakley. I'll see you all in the next video.